Hello and welcome to part 3. In accordance to this Act. Firstly, I would like to retract a previous statement that all the councillors of Ballarat need to be replaced, for there is one that is quite sensible and tries to stand up against this nonsense.
Okay, no worries. Sorry, let me just cancel that one. Hopefully that works for you now. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. So just firstly a question, I had conversations with or email today in relation to governance around advisory committees. Just wanted to check, mostly advisory committees usually aligned to council plan and council strategies, is that right?
Mr Montgomery.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Taylor. Yes, advisory committees, the structure for those used to be formed within the 1989 Local Government Act, which was a prescribed manner. They are no longer within that prescribed manner in the new version of the 2020 Act. However, they do reside within the governance rules, and they are a mechanism for us to be able to engage with affected persons or groups on items of strategic matter or strategic importance. And therefore that is the structure for an advisory committee.
Thank you. And follow-up question, I just noticed before, Mr CEO, in relation to our climate mitigation and also carbon neutrality, you mentioned around an advisory committee there. So the advisory committee may be an option to use there as the strategy is already in place, is that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for that question. My response to that was that Council has passed a resolution to work with the community to create a transition plan around carbon neutrality. At this stage, we haven't actually determined what is the best vehicle to use to work with the community to develop that. An advisory committee could be a potential use for that.
Thank you. And Mr Mayor, just from those questions, what I'd like to do is move a motion this evening to endorse... Sorry, I'm not allowed to move a motion?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. To move to endorse the establishment of an LGBTIQA plus stakeholder reference group to work with Council on Council providing support services and leadership in the community. If I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Is there a seconder that wishes to second Councillor Taylor's motion to establish a stakeholder reference group?
Sorry, I thought Councillor Coates had a question.
Do you have a question, Councillor Coates? I need a seconder first, I think, though. So is there a seconder to Councillor Taylor?
As I do, I'm happy to second the motion for the debate and hear Councillor Taylor speak to what he's trying to achieve by a change of direction. But I thought Councillor...
Okay, so now I'll go to Councillor Coates' question.
Just a point of order, Mr Mayor, I did have my hand up before Councillor Taylor's questions, and I was actually going to move the original motion, but I will foreshadow moving the original motion if that one fails.
Thank you, Councillor Coates, and I'm sorry, you both had your hand up at the same time, and it's a bit hard for me to... And Councillor Taylor did jump in without me to sort of go into him, but so Councillor Taylor, you have a mover, you have a seconder.
Thank you. So firstly, thank you very much for the presenters this evening to present, and it's great that we have members of the community to come and present and put their views to Council. But tonight I'd like to talk about governance, and that's what we stand by, our principles here. And I've received and reviewed the report and gone back through Council plans and Council's health and wellbeing plans as referenced in the report. The problem is I struggle to find that reference in there specifically around looking at establishing a committee, especially an advisory committee for the LGBTQIA+. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. We're working through our council plan right now. I think what we've done for councillors calling for this to come forward is actually jump the gun in the process of what we need to do. And that is actually going over really not following governance process that needs to be followed. So our upcoming council plan may include the concerns that have been raised by the community, but also raise areas of how we can work in that space, how we can actually provide leadership in the space, and also what that means from an actions and even action plan that may come out, but also around what is our roles and responsibility in this. So I'm not saying it's not there now, I'm saying it's actually not from a community point of view, but it's not in our council plan, it's not in our health and wellbeing plan either. Now, the report does not explain the purpose of the committee. that we've got tonight, apart from achieving Rainbow Tick for council-run services, LGBTIQA plus inclusion across the municipality, further opportunities to fly the rainbow flag on significant dates, opportunities for City of Ballarat to participate in local and regional pride events. Now, I'm confident to say that this council is and we are inclusive. We are to the city as a whole, and it's great to hear what's been presented this evening, that people have been feeling included in this community, in the city of Ballarat. Hopefully that we do show that as a council and as a community as well. We provide that inclusion. We also have events of flag raising, and Mr Mayor, I think you've done 2 this year already, is that right? And we do that and continue to support that. We also support events, as with any event that would come to this council, and we do that by either support of staff assistance or even through money through grants if they meet those requirements. The only item on here that we don't do is the Rainbow Tick. And actually I don't see any reason why we can't do the Rainbow Tick, but it's actually a business of council and council operations. So that's up to the CEO to make that role, to make that decision on doing that. We've heard tonight about safety and healthcare provisions and also training in schools. I know that these are not council jurisdiction, and it's very difficult for us to influence apart from for lobbying.
3 minutes, Councillor Taylor.
Don't I get 5? I do, don't I?
Yeah.
I'm introducing. I thought I'd already introduced the motion. I'm just speaking to it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. Unless you want me to get 2 bites of the cherry.
Continue
Okay.
on.
So I note that these are not council jurisdictions and very difficult for us as council to influence. So the only influence there is by lobbying the state government, because when we look at healthcare provisions, if we look at safety and also training in schools, it's actually state government that actually leads for change. This doesn't justify an advisory committee. Councillors, it doesn't justify it. In addition, we're allocating $48,000 to this committee when we don't even have any clear terms of references to what the committee is to consist of and achieve. And this is going to be difficult because we've actually already ticked off the items that are already in the report that we're going to achieve. Note that actually originally this amount last week was actually $54,000. It's been dropped to $48,000. So is that going to change and go up or go down or go around again? It's not clear because we haven't actually identified why we're doing the advisory committee. The only justification for an advisory committee is that during the council elections, prospective councillors were lobbied to sign a pledge by the Victorian Pride Lobby. And that was a very clear pledge to, quote, if elected, I will campaign for and support, very clear words, which then you question in relation to whether this is a conflict of interest in raising these items if you've signed that pledge. So councillors, are we following good governance? I don't think so in setting up this committee. That we're already meeting the items presented to us, and are we going to do the right thing in relation to this, or are we going to follow the correct process and procedures to investigate the roles and responsibilities of council? That's why I'm proposing the establishment of a stakeholder reference group so we can better understand the roles and responsibility of councillors, but also the broader community, the TIQA plus community, in relation to how we can assist, how we can work through this, how we can set up terms of reference, how we can put together the stakeholders within that committee if there is a need for the committee, or how we can also provide better services in the community. That's why I propose the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Hudson as the seconder. Do you wish to speak to it? Do you have anyone wishing to speak in favour of the motion, against the motion? Councillor Coates.
Against, yes, I will speak against Mr Mayor and really challenge Councillor Taylor's assumption on good governance. There is a report in front of us with a recommendation to establish this advisory committee, and that, to my mind, is good governance in looking at going through a process of getting frank and fearless advice from the officers, and I welcome the inclusion of resourcing in the report. I think that is also good governance to look at that. I would make the comparison of advisory committee for LGBTIQA plus with the fact we have an intercultural advisory committee. We have had for many years. The intercultural community make up roughly 10% of the community, a very, very diverse community. It's a similar situation that, it's not saying that all members within that group are vulnerable community members, but some are. And the purpose of having an advisory committee is for getting input from the community on looking inwards to the organisation, how we can improve and remove barriers internally. And in saying that we're doing it all, doesn't really cut the mustard, sorry. There's been some progress, but there's still a long way to go. And we've heard from community members tonight that it's not perfect out there, and we have a role as leaders. We can seek the advice of a diverse range of community members to look at how we can guide the organisation to make our services more inclusive. And look, just to put it really simply, it's the right thing to do. We have in our council plan, and I'll challenge that as well, that it doesn't align with the council plan. For many, many years, council plans of this council have espoused to be inclusive, and that means inclusive of everyone. And if there are people in our community who don't feel included, it's not my job to say that's not right. It's to listen to the community and listen genuinely. And I think advisory committees, through my experience in chairing quite a number of them over many years, do provide a really good mechanism for that, and that is good governance. I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Councillor Coates. Anyone else wishing to speak in favour of the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Harris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's disappointing in some respects just to be debating this in this motion from Councillor Taylor, and I am just disappointed. It's the reality is we had a motion that was before us, and I guess we'll get a chance to debate it, and I hope that'll be a quick debate once we've finished talking to this. And I am disappointed with Councillor Taylor. I just don't think this shows the best standards and of good governance at all, and I just think it's mean in outlook. Like, it's not. We want to be an inclusive community. We don't want to leave anyone out. We've heard, and I can think even in my own medical practice, the gaps are still. You could drive a train through. That we have to do better, much better. Our community, I think, is better than Councillor Taylor's motion. I think it does want advisory groups that can really give council and the community a great deal of help. There will be a stage, and we heard from one of the submitters, when we won't need a advisory group, that the exclusion for this component of our community won't exist. I welcome that day coming, and it will come one day, and this committee will have no role, and that'll be a great day. It isn't here yet. It really isn't here yet, and I am, as I said, just disappointed we have to debate Councillor Taylor's motion before we go on to the motion that was from the officers. And I think when we do debate that, I think we could have far more positivity than this debate has engendered. So I will vote against the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Any other councillor wishing to speak to the alternate motion regarding a stakeholder reference group? Councillor Taylor, do you wish to sum up?
Thank you. Again, I'll just reiterate, we are an inclusive council. The question is, when you follow good governance, do you actually open up the door when it comes to following those processes? You mentioned the multicultural committee reference group that we've got in place. We talk about heritage advisory committee we have in place. They've actually come through from strategies that are already within council to do that. Again, there's a process, there's a governance step to be done. I think more work needs to be done to understand what the requirements are, the roles and responsibility, and how we can work better with the community around consultation in this. And to sum up, I'll say, when quoting from the Governance Department, stakeholder reference groups are generally established to provide a streamlined communication mechanism between identified stakeholders and council officers to ensure the views and opinions of stakeholders are considered. I think that's pretty clear. That pretty well wraps up what we're trying to do. An advisory committee, I think, can set us up to try to achieve something that we're already doing, and without a clear expectation of what we can actually deliver upon. When you start talking about healthcare, education and safety, as much as we can show leadership, all we're doing is lobbying to do change in that space. We have a better opportunity to understand more what the community needs are and set together a good framework and structure, which is good governance, to actually deliver on the needs of the community. So that's why I've put this motion forward.
See you soon for part 4.